kind of hard to believe.
We thought it was
Yeah.
a prank at first. I said, Walmart's closing. That's the only.
A lot of small towns once believed the retail giants would save them with low prices and convenience. But now that dream is turning into a nightmare. Stores are disappearing one after another. And in a small town, losing just one store can mean an entire community loses access to food and medicine, while countless families lose the jobs they depend on to survive. Everything is now going completely in reverse. When a location is no longer profitable enough, a major chain can simply pull out, and many towns are only then discovering they have nothing left to fall back on. From disbelief and fear to the feeling of being trapped more and more, people are starting to wonder how much longer can their town hold on. And if this is no longer happening in just a handful of places, where's American retail really headed? Today we are going to look at just how much the major chains have changed small towns, why the places with the fewest options are often the easiest ones to cut, and who really pays the price when those chains leave. And stay with us until the end, because once you understand this entire cycle, you will see that what is disappearing is not just a few stores, it is a community's ability to sustain itself. Walmart and other major chains are pulling out of small towns. Oh, maybe you clicked on this video because you want to know how many Walmart, Walgreens, or other retail chain locations are about to close. But before we look at those numbers, take a look at this. The produce shelves are almost completely empty. This is Wolcott, a small town in New York, and the store being cleared out here happens to be the only grocery store in town. That already sounds bad enough, but for Doreen McGard, it is much more real than that. And there really are times when you just do not know how you're going to manage. Doreen uses a wheelchair and oxygen. When the store disappears, she is not just losing a familiar place to shop, she is also losing part of her ability to take care of some very basic, everyday needs on her own. And I think this is where the story starts to feel very different from a store closing in a suburb where there are 5 other supermarkets just a few minutes away. In Wolcott, losing one store can mean losing the only near place to buy groceries. It also makes me think about families with aging parents. When you are still healthy, driving an extra 20 or 30 minutes might just be a little inconvenient. But when your parents can no longer drive a carton of milk, a bag of vegetables, or a few things for dinner can suddenly turn into a phone call. Can you stop by today? And this is where I started to realize the problem goes way beyond Wolcott. Retail companies are taking another look at their store networks, closing weaker locations, and putting their money into places that perform better. And to be fair, I understand that. A business cannot keep a store open forever if it is not bringing in enough revenue just because the community wants it to stay. But I also cannot pretend both sides are losing the same thing. The company loses one location. Residents may lose the place where they buy food, pick up medicine, or the last place they can still get to on their own. And in small towns, that is exactly what makes this so scary. They did not have many options to lose in the first place. So why are the places that need these stores the most often the easiest ones to cut? That is when we have to look at the profit equation behind these decisions. Why are stores in small towns so often the first ones to get cut? The fewer options you have where you live, the more it hurts when you lose a store. The irony is that places like that are often the hardest places for a store to make enough money to stay open. Grocery Outlet just decided to close in 36 underperforming locations.
Expanding too quickly. He also cited changes in SNAP that impacted the brand's core customer base.
They expanded too quickly. Some locations were not making enough money, so they are cutting some of them. I get it. If you are running a chain with hundreds of stores, you cannot keep locations open forever when they keep dragging down your results. But if you live in a small town, you are already starting this game at a disadvantage. Say your town only has 5,000 or 10,000 people. That is pretty much the entire customer base the store can hope to serve. There are not hundreds of thousands of other people living nearby to make up for a slow week, but the freezers still have to run all night. You still need enough employees to cover every shift. Milk, meat, and vegetables still have to be delivered. The truck still has to make that trip whether 500 people or 5,000 people walk through the doors by the end of the day. And if you have ever lived in rural America, you know that distance is not some minor detail. Farther away means more gas, more time, and more cost for every shipment. At the same time, customers are having to squeeze every part of their budget. Food prices are higher. Changes to SNAP mean some families have less money to spend on groceries. Expensive gas makes people combine trips. Once they get inside the store, they look for deals, switch to cheaper brands, and leave a few things on the shelf. You might be doing the same thing yourself. You still buy milk. You still buy eggs. But the steak can wait until another week. Something that costs $8 and suddenly does not feel necessary gets put back. A grocery trip once a week might turn into once every 10 days. For one family, that is just a way to keep the budget from falling apart. but for a small store serving an entire town, hundreds of families doing the same thing is enough to change everything. Fewer customers, fewer trips, smaller baskets. The bills still have to be paid, then the company starts cutting.
Regions. Of the 36 stores closing, 24 will be in the eastern United States, which represents about 30% of
24 stores. Nearly a third of grocery outlets network in the east. Not all of them are in small towns. But think about what that means if you live somewhere that only had 2 or 3 options to begin with. In a city, losing a grocery store might just mean changing the address in your GPS. In a small town, it could mean your mom has to wait until the weekend when you are free to drive her to the store. And that is what makes me most uneasy. The places where people have the fewest choices are often the same places where stores have the fewest customers to make money from. You need them a lot. But they do not need your town in the same way. And if they really do leave, one day do not assume another store will immediately come in and take their place. In many small towns, that empty space can stay empty for a very long time because the stores that used to be there are already gone. When the big chains leave, many towns have no store to replace them. There is something even worse than Walmart closing by the time it leaves the place where you used to shop before Walmart showed up is already gone. Whitewright, Texas once had Pettit Grocery, a family-owned store that had been around for nearly 60 years, long enough for generations of people in town to grow up with it. Then Walmart came in. Better prices, more products, everything in one place. You really cannot blame people for switching over. If I had a family to feed and there was a cheaper place right near home, I would shop there too. But Pettit started losing customers. A former co-owner said business nearly came to a stop after Walmart opened. About 9 months later, Pettit closed. Then the thing nobody in Whitewright wanted to happen happened. Walmart closed too.
I heard we were touring small town grocery stores because it was like a simulation or something.
I feel like I'm in a simulation right now.
Some influencer out there who used to be from Minnesota almost didn't survive going to a small town grocery store. For heaven's sakes, if I didn't have this grocery store, I don't know what I would do. Sure, it looks small town.
Small town vibes is not even funny.
Walmart had only been there for about a year. Pettit did not come back. The former owner said he had no plans to reopen. One resident in the news report now has to drive about 30 minutes to buy groceries. Think about that chain of events one more time. Before Walmart, the town had a family grocery store that had survived for nearly 6 decades. Walmart came in, people changed where they shopped. Pettit closed. Then Walmart left too. And now, how exactly are you supposed to tell the people to go back to shopping the way that they used to? The old store is empty. The owner has moved on. The employees have found other jobs. The customers have gotten used to a different way of shopping too. So that 30-minute drive starts becoming normal. And those 30 minutes are not just time on a clock. They show up in gas money. In having to combine a whole week of shopping into one trip. In older people or people without cars having to depend on somebody else. Even comparing prices starts getting harder. A gallon of milk in the next town might be 50 cents cheaper. Great. But you have to drive dozens of miles farther to buy it. And once you've driven that far, hardly anybody buys just the milk and turns around. You buy the meat too, the toilet paper, stop by the pharmacy, fill up the gas tank, maybe even have lunch there. Whitewright did not just lose a store. No, but part of the town's shopping activities started moving somewhere else too. What bothers me is how quickly a big chain can change the habits of an entire town. But once it leaves, there is no button you can press to put everything back the way it was. And that is the question we really need to ask. How did towns that once had their own family grocery stores, pharmacies, and even their own main street gradually become this dependent on just a few major chains? How have the big chains changed local retail? Walmart does not have to force anyone to abandon Main Street. It just has to make shopping somewhere else harder to justify.
A small business owner, or they want to start their own business, and that's something that they desire to do. Back in the day, I remember when Walmart came to town, and Walmart was pretty much the death of the mom and pop shop.
This woman remembers when Walmart first showed up in her town. And frankly, I understand why so many families walked through Walmart's doors back then. Lower prices, more products. Park once buy groceries, medicine, clothes, stuff for the kids, household supplies, then head home. If you are sitting there at the end of the month figuring out how much money you have left for groceries, the whole idea of support your local stores sounds great. But if Walmart can save you $15 or $20 on one shopping trip, you're going to look at that money first. I would too. And people were not doing anything wrong. They were just choosing what worked best for their families at the time. Before the big chains took over, so much of the shopping money in a town was usually spread across a bunch of different places. You bought meat and vegetables at the family grocery store, medicine at the independent pharmacy, Nails, paint, and tools at the hardware store. Clothes came from another store. No single place had everything. Then Walmart showed up and put a whole lot of those things into the same shopping cart. It sounds simple, but for a small store, that is a very tough competitor to go up against. A family grocery store might buy a few dozen cases of cereal. Walmart buys for a massive nationwide system. One side asks the supplier what the price is. The other has enough buying power to negotiate that price down. Then you have warehouses, trucks, distribution systems, technology, and capital. If a local store has a few slow months, the owner feels it immediately in the family bank account. A major chain has thousands of locations of spread that risk across. Both of them have an open sign out front. But it is hard for me to say they are playing the same game. And you do not need the whole town to stop shopping locally in a single week for the balance to start shifting. You just need one group of customers to move their grocery shopping to Walmart. Another group starts buying their medicine and household supplies there too. A little money leaves the pharmacy. A little leaves the hardware store. A little leaves the clothing store. Each time it is only a little. But for a small business surviving on a few thousand customers around town, that little adds up fast. Revenue drops, so they stock less merchandise. With less merchandise, customers have an even harder time finding exactly what they need. Cutting prices to win people back is hard too, because those stores were already paying more for their inventory than the big chains. And little by little, people's choices start shrinking without there ever being one day when all of Main Street turns off the lights at once. I do not want to tell this story like Walmart showed up and every small store died. That is not true. Population changes, online shopping, labor costs, rent, debt, and a lot of other things have also put small businesses in a tough spot. But when a company with nationwide buying power, capital, and logistics enters a market with only a few thousand people, pretending the balance has not changed, it's not very convincing either. It is like something too powerful entering a small ecosystem. It does not have to deliberately wipe out everything else. It just has to take up enough food and space, and everything around it has to change the way it survives. And then after enough years, something very predictable can happen, and people are no longer spreading their shopping across 5 or 6 different stores. They get used to one place that has almost everything. That convenience is real. The lower prices are real too. But the more a town depends on just a few big chains for everyday life, the fewer choices it has left if those chains decide one day that the town is no longer worth staying in. The trap of depending on Walmart and national retail chains. Something pretty strange happens after years of living with a major chain. At first, Walmart is just the place you choose because it is cheaper and more convenient. But little by little, it becomes the place the whole town assumes will always be there. The food is there. The medicine is there. The household stuff is there. If you need something over the weekend, you barely even have to think about where to go. And that is exactly when the relationship starts to become uneven. For one family, that store might be tied to almost every weekly need. For a small town, it matters even more, because after years of change, there are fewer other options left. But to Walmart, Aldi, or Dollar General, that town is still just one location in a much larger network. If your store starts selling less, costs go up, or the profit is no longer attractive enough, the company has an option that local residents do not have. It can move its money somewhere else. Open more stores in an area where the population is growing. Invest in a store with stronger sales. Move capital into another market. But what about you? Your house is still here, your job is still here, your parents still live here, you cannot look at the town's sales numbers and decide the whole community is going to move somewhere else next quarter. That is where I think this starts becoming very hard to accept. A corporation can spend years becoming the place an entire town depends on, but becoming important to the community does not create an obligation to stay. If the numbers stop looking good, the company still has the right to leave. I understand that from a business point of view. But understanding it does not make the consequences any easier. Because by then, the town is no longer in the same position it was in at the beginning. The small stores that once shared all that shopping demand have gotten weaker or disappeared. People have gotten used to the prices selection and convenience of the big chain. A local business trying to come back now does not just have to find customers. It has to convince people who are used to buying everything in one place deal with higher costs, and survive long enough to win back a market whose habits have already changed. So this is not really about a company betraying a town. I think that is too simple. What is more worrying is that a community can slowly put too many of its basic needs in the hands of a business that the community itself has almost no power to keep. You need them to buy food next week. They only need your location to keep making enough profit. And when those two needs stop lining up, the company can walk away. The town still has to stay and live with the empty space left behind. And once that empty space appears, the problem does not stop with where people shop. The people who worked in the store, the businesses around it, and even the flow of money through the town start feeling the effects too. One store closing can drag the entire local economy down. By now, you've probably seen that losing a store in a small town does not just mean having to drive farther to buy things. The first person to lose a job might not even be a customer of that store. Say the Walmart in your town closes, and you are one of the people working there. The company might offer to transfer you to another location. That still sounds okay until the new place is 35 or 40 minutes from home. Now every shift means more money for gas, more time on the road, and one more problem to figure out if you get home late and someone has to pick up the kids. Or maybe you lose the job completely. The mortgage still comes due. The electric bill still comes. You still have to buy medicine. You cannot tell the bank the store just closed so you would like to pay next month instead. What do? You cut eating out first, put off fixing the car, keep the old washing machine a little longer, go to the salon less often, stop taking the whole family out to eat on the weekend. And right there, the story of one store starts affecting businesses that had nothing to do with it. Think about the diner near the shopping area. The owner does not work for Walmart, but a lot of her customers might be people who just finished shopping and stopped in for breakfast. Same with the gas station across the street. Same with the salon, same with the coffee shop. A big store brings people into that area. When traffic drops, the businesses around it feel it very quickly. But customers still need to buy food, medicine, and household supplies, so they drive to the next town. And once they are already driving, there are very few people buy groceries and then turn right around. They get gas there, pick up medicine there, eat lunch there. If there is something else they need, they might as well buy that too. You still live in the old town. Your house still pays taxes there. But more and more of the money in your wallet gets spent somewhere else. Keep that going long enough and a commercial area starts to look completely different. One empty storefront, then another store puts up a sign and saying it is available for rent. The parking lot gets quieter on weekends. The business next door starts cutting its hours because there are not enough customers anymore. And if you are thinking, well, rent is cheaper now, so maybe a new business will move in, I would like to believe that too. But put yourself in the shoes of someone about to spend their own money opening a store. You see that a major retailer just left customer traffic is down a lot. People are already used to driving to another town, and several nearby storefronts are sitting empty too. Do you really want to put your savings into that? This is where one closure can start leading to another. Lost jobs make people spend less. Fewer people shopping in town make the remaining businesses weaker. The more places struggle, the harder it becomes to attract anyone new. And in a small town, losing just a few links in that chain can be enough to change everything very quickly. A store closing in a city might leave behind one empty address. In a small town, it can take jobs, customers, spending, and the opportunity for the next store to come in along with it. At that point, the practical question is no longer how to put everything back the way it was. It is this: how can people still protect themselves when the choices around them keep disappearing? How to keep your options before the whole town is down to just one store. After everything we have talked about, it is easy to come to one simple conclusion: then just stop shopping at Walmart. I do not think that advice is very useful. If you live somewhere with Costco, Aldi, Kroger, Target, and 3 other grocery stores within 10 minutes, you can vote with your wallet. But if Walmart is the closest place to buy food, medicine, and household supplies, you do not exactly have much to boycott. And I am not going to tell a family that has to watch every dollar that they should pay more just to prove they support local businesses. Your money is your money. But at least make sure you are calculating the real price you're paying. A store 25 miles away that saves you $8 might sound like a good deal, but once you add gas time and the round trip, those $8 can disappear pretty fast. If I already had to drive that far, I would combine groceries, pharmacy items, and household supplies into one trip. I would check the sales before I left. And if the local store was only a little more expensive but helped me avoid another drive, I would consider keeping some of my money there. Not because of nostalgia, but because if a grocery store, pharmacy, or hardware store in town can stay alive, you still have one more option. And do not wait until the store closes to start paying attention. Hours keep getting cut. The pharmacy reduces services. The grocery store is constantly running out of things. There are fewer employees. One empty storefront and then another one. None of those things mean the store will disappear tomorrow. But if the whole town only has a few places left to buy its essential things, I would not treat those signs like they do not matter. And at the community level, I think there is one very easy mistake to make: losing one big chain and then immediately trying to chase down another big chain to replace it. Not every town has enough customers to support a Target or Costco. Some places need a smaller grocery store, a regional chain, an independent pharmacy, a store that serves fewer people but can still make enough money to stay around for the long haul. I do not need the most famous logo. I need a store that will still be there 5 years from now. because the goal is not to bring Main Street back to 1985. The goal is to keep the entire community from being left with just one place to buy the things they cannot live without. What is happening in small towns is a warning for all of America. And at this point, I do not think America is watching retail disappear. I think we are watching it become concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. Americans are still shopping, money is still moving through checkout lines every day, but when prices force people to watch every dollar, that money naturally flows toward the places that can sell for less, deliver faster, and handle more of their needs in one place. Walmart can do that. Amazon can do that. Aldi and Dollar General have their own advantages too. A family-owned store has a much harder time. So does a weaker regional chain. And little by little, the market starts reshaping itself. Businesses that are big enough keep gaining more customers. Weaker players slowly lose market share. Locations that do not make enough money get cut. Capital gets moved to places with better profit potential. I would not simply call this a retail collapse, because that makes it sound like one day every store is going to turn off the lights at the same time. No. Plenty of stores will stay open, some chains will even keep opening more. What is changing is who still has enough strength to stay, and where they are still willing to stay. Small towns just make this much easier to see. In those places, you do not need a chain to close hundreds of locations before people feel the change. It can take just a few decisions made at a corporate office hundreds of miles away to completely change the way an entire community shops. And I think that is the bigger question for the American economy. We are building a system that is incredibly efficient at scale. Prices can be lower, goods can move faster. A few companies can serve millions of families better than any small store ever could. But efficiency does not always mean resilience. If more and more spending goods and services are moving through a small number of giant systems, then every time one of those systems changes, strategy, a lot of communities have almost no say in the decision. To me, that is the part worth worrying about. It is not that America is about to run out of places to spend money. It is that more and more communities may still have stores, still have customers, still have demand, but have fewer choices about who serves them and whether those businesses will still be there tomorrow. Maybe the real collapse does not begin when the last store closes. Maybe it begins when a community realizes it still has needs, but almost no power left to decide which system will meet them. We have to admit one thing: when too many everyday needs get concentrated in just a few major chains, people gradually lose their choices. And that becomes even more obvious in small towns where losing just one store can be enough to throw an entire community off balance. I think we should look at convenience from both sides. It can make life easier today, but it can also make us more dependent tomorrow. If you live in a small town, is this happening around you? Share what you were seeing and what you hope your community can still hold on to. And what topic would you like the next video to dig into? Feel free to say exactly what you think. And this channel exists to look at the changes happening across America through the everyday lives of the people living through them.